One. What's up, everyone? L the Alchemist here with a great friend of mine, Martin McGregor. How you doing tonight, brother?
I am doing great, sir. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, I'm just excited to talk about everything we got to get into. And yeah, again, just thanks for having me. And I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too, man. And I actually it was kind of funny because during your guys' creation, as I'm reading through this book, talking about when you took a trip to Indiana with EA, and when I was just reading that over, like I don't know, it sparks so much. I, Honestly, I don't even know the word other than just like it's divinity, man. You know what? Divinity. Because the creation of all you guys were going through, and then how it was like we just touched past like that, and hearing about your story about your vanishment as you guys are doing different things, and where, basically your body was taken into a different dimension and pulled to a certain moment and for the creation of this RS ZOETIA, and it just gave me that inclination and just remembrance of like everything is sacred and things that we don't even know that are connected and intertwined as you unfold and learn and let things just grow and prosper as in natural ways. It comes into the fruition of your desired what you really want within. And with Zoetia, what I'm coming to understand, and I'm still just putting together things, and I just got my idol today, which is awesome. But it is an unfolding and understanding about that word of power, and so I would like to kind of start off there and just kind of your inspirations and what kind of brought this whole alchemical table of elements to life.
Well, I mean, you cracked up a bunch of different subjects right there in the very beginning. I like it. One, I really like how you struck on the word divinity there because that trip that we took to Indiana very much did end up being a divine moment, I believe. And even I think we met up before we did the ritual that I talk about in the book. And because we were actually like there at an event, we were saying hi to everybody, and they were like, "All right, we got to go do something." But I remember meeting you, and I was like, we're gonna talk again. Like, there's gonna be a future moment here, just because there was that spark. And then we went in. To be honest, to answer your question, that night was the beginning of it all. It really was. It wasn't the beginning of all our work together, but it absolutely was the beginning of ARS ZOETIA. And that was a gate opening that we were doing. I had been working with Steph Connolly for years by that point. She's my publisher for a couple of my books. And I usually swoop in and I snag choice little titles of hers whenever she releases them. So she did a Theophantic Gate Opening book a couple years ago, and I picked that up. And something was just pulling me whenever Eric and I and a friend of ours were all working together in a group. And I started studying that heavily, and then we crafted some things from that book. And then we went to that event, and we rented an Airbnb that we could stay together in, and across the street from it, just the most perfect coincidence that could have happened was this. I mean, in the middle of Fort Wayne, Indiana, a just beautiful, like old school Greek fountain garden, and they had archways and pillars, and I mean, like I said, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, just in the middle of where you would not expect to see this thing, and we nicknamed it Babylon. Like we got there, me and our buddy got there first, and then Eric got there after us. But we got there first and looked at it and said, "Oh, it's Babylon. And we're literally across the street from the Garden of Babylon. We're doing our stuff out there." So we did that gate opening, and it's so funny that things you aren't looking for, like this is a major thing, like you said, in the unfolding process of this, things you're not looking for pop up at you at the weirdest of times, and they can be so profound. And that's what that moment was for me, because months earlier, I had that moment in the book where I had appeared to Eric at his house while I was at my house, and he had told me about it, and I was like, okay, well, I wasn't doing anything to do that, so I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, you know, and we have an honest relationship like that when we're working about things. I'm not gonna just be like, oh yeah, I was doing this magic ritual, and yeah, you know, I was like, I don't know what to tell you, dude. I was in the shower, like, we've been talking this week, and I was thinking about you, but that's all. I wasn't naked, was I? Because yeah, that's the only time, you know. And he was like, no, you weren't, you know. So and then months later, we're both in Indiana, and I, as part of this gate opening, I did my special little part and they did theirs. And there's a moment where we crushed these seals that we'd created. And I crushed mine and I stood back up and I was expecting to see them done with theirs, you know. And it was, like I said, already in a place that already felt so magical. It was late at night. We were in the middle of a public area where we probably shouldn't have been in like midnight or 1 in the morning at that point, you know. So it all had that kind of air already. And I stand up and like, our buddy's gone. Eric is gone. And I'm just like left there. And I even say it in the book, I had this moment of like, did we really come out here all this way and do all this shit? And now you guys are gonna like hide behind bushes at this magic moment just to mess with me? Like, is that what we're doing? And then I was like, well, screw it. I'm going to do what I'm here to do. So I knelt back down and I charged up the seal a little bit more. And I stood up and, you know, I was done. And then there they were. I was like, okay. So we make our way out and then they're immediately like interrogating me. Like, I'm the one that hopped behind a bush to mess with them. And it was like a weird moment, man. And it was like, it was the first time we had ever met together in real life. I actually took a road trip with our buddy from my house. He drove from Texas to my place and we drove to Indiana. Eric win. And it was like, yeah, it was all our first times really. Like, we had been talking online for a long time, but you know, it was one of them moments. So we all kind of come back together and everybody's got this air of like, what the hell just happened? Like, who's messing with who? And it really took us, we sat down in the kitchen and started talking about it. And it took me just trying to figure out, because they were being honest that they didn't hide from me. And I was being honest that I didn't jump behind any bushes either. So what the fuck is happening here? And it took me figuring out that again, it was funny. It was the connection that I had made whenever it happened originally was I was in the shower thinking of you, so I hope I wasn't naked in front of you. And he was like, no, you were wearing like this black suit and you had your sleeves rolled up and your hair slicked back, and it was like your professional like persona, you know. And I was like, well, I guess maybe that's what I look like on the astral, but you know, I don't know. And it took me going. In that kitchen, I looked at him and I said, what was I wearing? What was I wearing back then? In Utah, when I appeared to you, what was I wearing? And he had to look at me and he had to go, oh. And it was exactly what I was wearing then. And that, like I said, that was a moment for me after we really were honest about it and put the weight on it that we really should have. Like, it's very easy to drop into cynicism and just be like, no, I'm being superstitious and stupid. I need to not do that. And put the weight on it that you need to. And once I did that, it really sealed for me just how not connected time and space and magic are. And things that are going to happen to you now can sometimes be dependent on you doing things in the future, and vice versa. And that's the key that thing really unlocked for me. And that's actually a key for the ritual, for the group ritual that I'm going to do for the ARS ZOETIA release, is that as I am crafting this master fuel, everyone who comes back through as a part of that ritual and adds a prescription to it, I honestly in my heart believe that will be applied to that fuel, because that's a lesson that was absolutely taught to me during that experience. So it's just funny that I also felt that was probably going to be a pretty natural beginning of the conversation, but that really was the beginning of all of it, was that night, going through that gate, having that experience, learning that lesson, and then later on at subsequent in-person meetings, because we learned very quickly that, oh, that's a key, is we're going to have to start getting together, because things magical happen when we're actually together, and we let them, and we expect them to. In a subsequent meeting, I think our buddy was the one who first broached, after a pretty good little conversation about how we would flip the goetic construct, and how we would actually change that if we were to just fundamentally rewrite that as a left-hand path tradition. How would that come about? We were playing with the circle and the triangle idea and just everything about it. And I think it was our buddy who originally said, well, why don't we put the spirit in the circle and the worker in the triangle, and reverse them, and put the spirit behind the worker as a motivating, pushing force forward. And I latched on that immediately. I was like, that's golden. We were doing that 100%. And then we took that into the application phase. We started actually doing it and seeing what results accrued from it. And that was then like, okay, now we have the construct. So what the hell does a construct mean now? Like that, like you said, the unfolding of it, that's how it came about each and every time, is we'd be handed something, and then we would have to go back through and say, all right, what does this mean now? What are all the implications of this now that we've figured out that this is what it's supposed to be, and it does work?
And when it comes down to, like, you made these prescriptions, and then there was also the identity of spirits, and kind of seeing them in a different shade of light, versus what has been bastardized essentially by the church. And I know one of the big spirits is Beelzebub. Instead of seeing him as, it's the spirit of filth and waste and deterioration, it can be a restoration, rejuvenation, and a beautiful landscape full of trees essentially. And changing even those ideas about working with these spirits, which I think is ingenious, because I mean, back when you're just getting into it all, maybe like, oh, that spirit seems dark, I'm gonna go be an edgelord, you know what I mean? And they can get some people involved, but like understanding like the greater quality of these beings, and they're not just inside of one subcategory. King Paimon can do a million different things, and it just kind of comes down to, the way you're approaching and the idea of, from, what you picked up on from everything you've learned. So, was that something that the spirits were asking, or was it, like, once again, something that's kind of unfold throughout the process of a new identity, essentially?
Well, man, that was a really good segue, because that really was one of the first things that started coming through after we had the construct is, well, okay, if we are looking at the ritual itself in a different way, then that almost absolutely implies that you look at the spirits a different way. And that was already kind of built into the idea, because if you look at the way Goetia approaches spirits, they have to be kept at arm's length and basically forced and commanded by the grace of God. And that's like absolutely counterintuitive to the very way that any left-hand path or Satanist is going to try to want to work with these spirits. Like, it's what has been, and it's what we get to work from, but it isn't what we would want. It just really isn't. So that was already on our minds. And then there was a lot of unfolding, especially, like, you made a great reference there to Beelzebub, because he shows us exactly that, demons got put into this box, like you said, of one category. They are the dark ones, angels are the light ones. And anybody who's worked with either side knows that these are beings of incomprehensible light and incomprehensible dark, both of them at the same time, every single one of them. They are complex beings, and they can't just be put into that box. So Beelzebub was absolutely talking to Eric during this process, and I really looked at Beelzebub as the template for that, of like, he is showing us what we need to be like paying attention to in this change of idea of what these spirits are. So he would take him out into beautiful nature scenes and be like, this is my home, and then talk to him about the downfall of the Industrial Revolution and how it ruined mankind and the world, and it's all going to burn, and like civilization is going to come crumbling down. And like, it was, again, very much the two different sides of it, where it was like, he is a nature spirit, and he does not like what you're doing to nature to build up all your shit. And then you look at the Christian mystics, the ones that actually crafted Goetia, and the popes and the priests and the Benedictine monks that were actually doing this magic originally, and you start seeing the world they were trying to create. And then you look at, okay, so if that's Beelzebub's spirit and they are who they are, I can start seeing where he's the Lord of Rot, and he's the Lord of Decay, and he's the Lord of Fester, because he is exactly that to them, to the people who want to bulldoze the landscape and build everything anew in their own vision and their own image. That is, yes, that's exactly who he is to them, but that isn't necessarily who he's going to be to us. So that is the difference in dynamic that we needed to start to play with. And then, like you said, when we began to craft the elemental names, I don't think it's going to be too much of a secret that'll drop out of the bag, but all of those are based off of the names of goetic spirits or other demons of other traditions that Eric and I wanted to include in this. So that is the root of them. They are all rooted in demonic forces. But we made a conscious choice not to make a connection between those elements and those names yet. We included one template, and that was Satan. That was 3 elements that were a brand new way of looking at Satan, and those were the 3 elemental, the zoetic elements that were in that table. Aken, Tak, Ig, or Aken, Tak, Kig. And it's basically a familiar course home, or the familiar path of earth. You kind of have to let your mind really chew on that for a little bit, but there are a lot of implications in that, just that very different shift in looking at who he is, and how quickly symbols like Baphomet have been attached to him just naturally, even despite probably the will and the desire of the creator and everybody who's come past him. That symbol was immediately associated with Satan, and it's because if you look at the natural course of Earth, the natural course of the beings that live here, it's very much a Baphometic cycle of death and rebirth, and I don't want to get off into that tangent, but that's an example of how those 3 elements came from Satan. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's who Satan is or what Satan is, but those are 3 elements of Satan that you can work with that have been identified through Eric and I in this table. And that is similarly applicable to many demons of the Goetia. I won't say all of them, because we did pull from some other traditions as well, but that was essentially the base root of all of it.
I do like what you were touching on, though. Just the inversion of everything. I mean, it took me 10 years of studying magic to understand why the cross is upside down, because everything's inverted. Everything is upside down, and you find out like they're eating the body of Christ. I mean, that's cannibalistic. Let's just keep doing this murder over and over, and then have all these wars over with whatever Abrahamic God mind frame you want to put it on. But like you said, that is a whole nother thing. But I do really like that table in of itself, because it gives you such a variety of anything you could possibly want to make. And then added bonuses to it, like as I was talking earlier, like saying the one I created, there's certain key words that bring it to life even more to add more potency to it. And then, some words are a little bit different. They kind of mean the same thing, but you could have play on words. Now, like I like to write hip hop music. So when I was going through it, I was first not even caring so much for what the thing would do, but more as to I could relax into it and it just felt right. And then when I put off that mind frame and I was just flipping around, then my eyes got pulled to it. So
Mhm.
I do want to definitely let people know, like when you're looking at that, don't use your logical side of mind. Let your magical mind just magnetize and pull you to it. That's at least what it worked for me, and I thought that was awesome. But there was, when it comes to the creation of the idol, and we'll just touch a little bit onto it. I see that there's like the time frame
Mhm.
in which there's this. It's, I don't know if it's potency, it's life, like when it's most prevalent or on this plane. Because I see you guys have dates along those lines, and then there's also the actual that fire aspect of bringing it to life with that triangle of fire. So I'm just wondering if there's like a certain, if that's more of a what does your intuition feel like, customizationable, or is like that a huge thing? Like you need to make a triangle of fire to set this idol on fire, and is it when I create this rhythm, this life of this mantra? Is that the day when it starts and then when you burn? I just wanted to kind of just touch base a little bit on those things. And yeah, just pick your brain at that.
No, that's a great question, and you're really great at just naturally hitting on some really interesting topics that link together really well. Because just to link back to the beginning of the conversation with this unfolding, and not necessarily wanting, like, intending to receive what you get, and then finding something even better than what you originally wanted. Uh, that was our original intent with the elemental table, was to kind of give a format to viewing those spirits by new names and in a new way. And what I believe we were actually, successful in that, but we also got one of the most absolutely natural, I believe primal, magical languages that I've ever seen. I've been around the block for a while, Enochian keys, reverse Enochian keys, the demonic ends, all of these mystical languages that people want to adopt in their ritual practice. And I'm guilty of that as well. A lot of times when I'm beginning with a new spirit, or I'm just feeling more in the mood of, being, in my own power, I want something kind of spooky and magical to chant along with, whatever I've done. And I'm just be honest with it. Sometimes you want that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've ended up receiving that through that elemental table, through being able to craft litanies and prescriptions, and let's just be honest about, their spells. I'm using a different language for it, but they're literal spells. And you have a way of crafting that in a way that not only you can alter it and change the order of the words and the elements. You can add in English contextual words to fill out the meaning of it, so that even if you only have 3 elements that you're using, it's still crafting a very distinct and specific message. You can use all those things to create an amazing spell that you can supplement your ritual with, that you'll actually understand the words to. You know what you're saying, and that's one of the things that, those are both of the things I've struggled with the most when doing any of the other ones. It's not knowing exactly what Enochian symbolism that you're saying actually means. And the same thing with the ends. And I worked with the ends a lot. I enjoyed working with them, but if I'm being honest, you have the translation there, but you don't have a table that you can go through and be like, well, I want to draft my own do content and supplement my magical practice with that. And again, that was not what we intended when we started out, but it's what we got at the end. And it's like, it's been like that across the board, just across the board.
And that's how things are like truly authentic, and it's something outside of yourself. And I mean, especially because you're working in a group of people, so you guys got the combined notes that's saying, hey, look at what I have, not what you have. It's you just express and things are lining up. But I just find that whether that's writing a script to because I've got a little television thing I've been working on, but writing something for that, and you have like kind of the ending, the idea in the beginning. But as this process goes along, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. This needs to go here. Oh, and now I met this person, 3 weeks later who gave me this idea, which it's like that pickle on the cheeseburger. Like, that's phenomenal. Let's add that there. I really don't like pickles.
To circle back to your question, though, to actually answer that, the timing of things does exactly that. Again, you're just naturally hitting right on it. The year-long schedule that I provided in the book was basically to conceptualize the whole process in a year-long calendar, so that people could actually just see in a longer time frame how that process is supposed to unfold. So you would begin with loading. So loading is, you're probably going to have your prescription already, but you're going to want to draft a litany almost immediately, and maybe pull from one or two of them that were already created in the book. And go through that and start conceptualizing what that prescription means through the litanies. And then those are hopefully going to help you start being like, okay, well, I'm starting to feel that the idol needs to look like this. It needs to have these elements to it. And then you can start building that. And then as you continually go to that altar and make time and space to actually commune with it, you should receive some greater insight. And that is the whole point behind transitioning between loading and then reckoning. Loading has a holiday at the high point of it, that Spirit's Night, and it is about one, connecting with any spirit that you are also working with, but also connecting with your own spirit. So this is generally like a bonfire rite, where you're going to play whatever music puts you in your power, whether you're a drinker or a smoker or neither, a teetotaler, whatever. If like whatever puts you in the place that you feel most powerful, you're going to try to spend as much time in that space that night with whatever spirits you're working with. So it is, again, it's the height of that loading, of that coming together and absorbing of both of your energies together. And then you move into reckoning, and reckoning is going to be basically when you should really start focusing on, instead of going to the altar and making an offering and doing a litany and spending time maybe absorbing some of that energy and just bringing it into myself. Once I have ended loading and I've entered the first phase of reckoning, now I'm making space for connection. Now I'm making space to actually receive psychic communication from the spirit as far as what is going to come next. And it's not expected that that's just going to lightning bolt into you the first day. It's now you're making a habit out of making time for that to happen, and hopefully it will. The reckoning ritual, the grand rite, is the height of the time of reckoning, that time period of the year. And that holiday, it's receiving night. You receive the reckoning of the spirit that you're working with. And that's the night where you should be carrying notebook into that triangle. If you're working with the spirit for music, you're carrying your instrument in. You're doing whatever your prescription is about. You're carrying that into the triangle, and you're receiving the reckoning of that spirit. And by that time, like I said, hopefully you've made time and space enough to receive initial communication, and then by the time you enter that triangle, it really fires that connection, and that is what that ritual specifically is all about. In specifically demonology practice, fire is used as a spiritual gateway. It's not a destruction force, it's a transmutive force. So it activates what was on the physical into the spiritual. So that's the whole point behind sacrificing the idol that you've spent all this time dumping all of this physical energy into, because you're then going to light it on fire and activate it as basically a giant spiritual battery. And I don't want to get too far into the mechanics because, one, I'm really not educated enough to talk about it, at too much length. But I do know the basics of how batteries work. And if you see the ritual space at that point as a fluid, a conductive fluid, and then the worker goes into that triangle, they carry with them their focus, and they carry with them a piece of that sacrificial fire that links it to the altar behind them. And you basically create a circuit. You create the internal circuit that is basically the operation of any battery. And it links from the altar to the beacon to the focus back to the altar, creating that continual circuit, and you're right in the middle of that. You are the thing that is traveling directly through. And you take that reckoning with you then into the last half of reckoning, which is now, okay, if this has worked, I should be firing on all cylinders. I'm catching inspiration and synchronicities left and right. I am putting pen to paper. If I'm a writer, I'm playing my instrument every day. I'm really starting to identify specifically what that reckoning was, what that lesson, what that message that spirit was communicating to me, what that was. That's the end of reckoning. And then you move into working, and working is working. You know exactly what that is. It's now you are literally doing what you said that you wanted to do. And that is split up into two phases as well. At the height of it is performance night. And that's where you should essentially be at a place where you could go and show people, this is what I did, this was the result. And then through the course of working after that, you're fine-tuning, you're finished touching, master strokes, all those things, until at the end of that period, you've now completed the work that you set out to do. And this was again, this was a unfolding for us because it was exactly how ARS ZOETIA was written. And you see it kind of, I don't know if we were mic'd up enough at the end of that ritual to hear Eric say it, but that ritual basically ended our working phase for this first cycle of ZOETIA. And it was, we walked into that triangle for reckoning with empty notebooks, and we wanted to, it was give us a great work to deliver to the world. And at the end of working, this is what we got.
Wow. Dude, that is so awesome. I mean, that in of itself is alchemy to its roots, man. Like literally all that energy and building something, giving it that love, that attention, that joy, that exact energy you're going for, and then the sacrifice of it, which really is encompassing and bringing it to life on the other side. And then it's able to be a co-working with you throughout. I mean, to me, it's so badass because it's so unique. And since you can do so many different creations, it's like you can go through that process in a limited amount of times. And you just saying, there's this is just the first book essentially. Like I'm definitely like I'm a part of the ride, man. Like I said, I actually got the Skeletor from He-Man. I just saw that and I was like, that's gonna be the base. And then I saw Play-Doh and I was like, okay, I have herbs and other different magical ointments I can put. Okay, let's just starting the idea to come to life. And I I definitely think I'm going to keep my prescription the way it is, but I might add some other words, and that's really awesome too. I'm happy you said that because I would kind of I think that all comes together, but now that I could add some words together in my mind, it would be a more conceptualized idea that's like, oh, okay, now it makes more sense versus a couple words that are all together trying to force it. So yeah, this is super cool, and I wanted to hear a little bit more about your group, right? Which by the time this video is up, everyone, you're gonna have about 36 hours to sign up. But I mean, this thing is. I've heard Eric talk about it a few times, but yeah, please touch base on that because this thing sounds so badass.
Well, one thing that, especially one thing, I absolutely love the fact that Become a Living God gives creators a platform to connect with the people who consume their material, and actually do these types of workings that really can impact people and link us together, and you become a part of the working. And that's something I really wanted to hammer on this working, particularly because stepping into that triangle and receiving that reckoning is something that is really special, and it's something that Eric and I want to share with people. We want to facilitate people coming out and doing that together with us, and for that, we're going to need fuel. We're going to be setting a lot of stuff in fire. And I thought that it would be a great way to link everybody together and provide tools for the future to create a master loading fuel as part of this ritual. And I think Eric is kind of counterbalancing that with a reckoning that is meant to really like deliver some kind of instant I don't want to just like give the expectation of visions and stuff like that to people, but his is supposed to really connect them in the moment with the working, and mine is looking more towards in the future. So what I've been doing over the last few days, since the 15th, I think, I've been going to my altar, and I have a chalice of Everclear, which is a good fuel you can use for some of these workings. And I've been loading that. I've been loading it with yew wood, which is, some people say yew wood is actually the wood that the world tree would have been, mainly because it's supposed to be an ash tree, but yew is a lot more prevalent in that area, and it's also known as needle ash. So there's that connection, but it's basically representative of connection, of spiritual connection. I've been putting in frankincense, which is also just a highly spiritually connective force. It's a cleansing and empowering force. And then copal, which is a very interesting resin because it's known as food of the gods and also the sacrificial blood of the tree. And we are doing a prescription that is the absorption of the spiritual connection to the tree of thorns. So I've been going to the altar every day, loading that fuel with that. And then on the 25th, that's the wolf full moon. You can look into that, but it's a very connective energy, finding allies, finding your pack kind of thing. And I'm going to burn everybody's names. I'm hoping that everybody who's going to participate will also craft their own prescription to also burn when they watch. And those prescriptions will get added into the ritual. It'll get added into the fuel. And then I'm going to crush down all those ashes, add that to the fuel along with also some wine, because wine is also a living organism. And wine is basically going to be the catalyst that mixes everything together and then also provides a medium for things to be condensed. Because after everything's mixed, I'm going to take it outside on the full moon, and I'm going to freeze it because it is frigid in the Midwest right now, under the full moon, in a process called ice distillation. And ice distillation is essentially where alcohol is going to thaw and evaporate faster than anything else, particularly water. That's why whenever you use a still for distillation, you don't put it up to boiling and boil off all the water. You raise it to a temperature where alcohol boils off, but water does not. And that's where you're actually capturing the spirit of the alcohol from the base. And in this method, you're using ice to do the exact same thing. You trap everything in a solid block. The alcohol, the spirit, is the only thing that thaws first. You drain that off, you leave the rest clunking around in the can, and now we have a condensed, loaded spiritual fuel that we can then use, similar to the principle of like Florida water. You can use a little bit of it to make a big batch just as powerful. So when we go into group workings and doing all these rituals, we can load our fuels with that, and every working that we do in the future will be linked to this very first original working with everybody else's prescriptions that were added to.
Wow. That's like joining in on this ritual is really joining in on unlimited rituals. Kind of like it could be 2 years down the line, it could be 6 years down the line, and yet you're still going to be a part of this. Wow, I've never heard of anything like this before. This is super badass. This is definitely something to hop aboard. I have the links down below, just so everyone knows. So you definitely got to.
No, I appreciate it, and honestly, that was one of the things that we've been nervous about. Eric and I worked on this for a couple of years, and it's extremely experimental. It's very original. You're not going to find another book that has these rituals in it, this method in it, and that always has, when you're critiquing other stuff or giving a primer on things people are already interested in, that's one thing. But yeah, when it's an experimental piece of magic, it gets a little dicey, the response has been good so far. We're really excited to share it with everybody, and that also it ups the ante for us as well, because it's like we really do want everybody to like it and really engage with it. So I really focused on that for this one, to really give everybody an opportunity to really become a part of what will come next. And like I said, man, it's been an unfolding process, and to be honest, it's been a really educational process for me. I've tried to stay humble and learning at every step, and I've tried to apply the things that I've learned. So to take it all the way back, it's like when I stood in that kitchen in Indiana. And because you hear that all the time in magic, oh, time and space, it's relative and doesn't matter, and the things you do now and things back then, and it's all linked and doesn't, and you just hear it and it's like, yeah, okay, but show it to me. And that night it smacked me in the face that is true, it works. So I applied that lesson for this ritual.
And that exact lesson that you're talking about, I learned that today, actually. I had to go take care of some business because I have a couple other side gigs I do besides my magic, and one of them was kind of on the line, so I had to go take care of some business or something. And as I would go get some food at this place, I pull in there and I see the exact same vehicle, which I drive around, sitting in that lot, and I was like, wow. I just got done making sure I secured it, and now this is here securing it. Like, okay, well, thank you, universe. Sometimes it's not what we anticipated, going through any working and hardships. But as we get through it and get on the other side, you get that appreciation and that reflection, knowing it is for a higher purpose. And damn, when that happens, it's like, fuck yeah.
It really is. It was something that, I'm kind of a broken record with people who I talk to a lot, with just, whenever I transitioned into Satanism and the occult, a lot of people spend a lot of time in other faiths going, I've never connected. I searched and searched and searched, and I just never found it. And when you come here and you're meant to be here and you're actually doing the work, it beats you over the head. Like that question leaves your mind so fast, and you're then left wondering if you're crazy or not, because it's like, how could it be this obvious? Like, I have to just be insane, because it can't be this clearly beating me in the face that, oh, that was magical and it's real and it's confirmed and I need to just shut up and accept it. Like, it really is like that. And that's also something very hard to get people who haven't experienced it to really believe, Yeah,
that is one of the hardest parts. You can tell anyone about a magic spell or how every single individual is interconnected. And it's just about putting your mind frame into that state of knowing you can cause any effect, and some people think that's absolutely blasphemous. But then breaking it down to a molecular level, everything's made of atoms, everything's vibration, everything is interconnected. I mean, there we go. But, it can get a little wild. Now, there's two more things I was going to bring up, but I know that would, that probably you would go on. So I definitely want to have you back on, talk with you, because I just wanted to say real Satanism, that whole concept and idea is fucking badass, bro. And you're in the deification magic spell book, talking about those runic from the Grimoire. Yeah, so like these are definitely I was just like, dude, there's no way we're just gonna be able to touch base on that and then leave it off. So we'll definitely have to talk about that. That sounds so freaking great. And thank you again for coming on. Seriously, just making time for discuss this badass satanic alchemy. Dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, thank you for having me. And no, I really appreciate having a platform to come on and talk about it, and have the opportunity to rant and go off on tangents and really talk in length about it. Because in today's make a 10-minute video for TikTok and slap it up there type set, it's nice to be able to actually have a discussion. And I would love to come back on and we can absolutely discuss real Satanism and the Grigori. Those are two things that are basically my focuses now that Zoetia has released. I have 3 major projects that I'm actively going to start working on, because like I said, this was a multiple year thing, that it was rituals and magic and meetings and all types of stuff that kept us busy. And now after the fact, especially after this last group ritual happens, I have a giant new tool set to work from, but it's like, what the hell am I going to do now? So I have 3 things. One is absolutely real Satanism. Just to give everybody a quick one on that. I don't do things just to do them. I've never made Satanism my career. It's always been my religion and my faith and my spirituality. And then when I saw things happening within it, I would feel compelled to do things. And if that felt like it was within my means to do them, I would try it. So whenever this was years ago, this was like 2010, 2011, there was a lot of talk about Satanism from people who were not Satanists. And it was getting very prevalent. And as little as I am, as small as a one person can be, I was like, I'm a Satanist and I can set the record straight about some of these things from the inside. So I wrote Paths to Satan, put that out, and that was why I wrote that. Like I said, I have reasons. And similarly for Book of the Fallen, I was looking at the divide within Satanism itself, and these two groups, being atheists and theists, just not being able to find any kind of way of coming together on common ground. And it's really not all that hard. Like, if you actually do what you say you believe and hold the principles and live by them, it's really not that hard to find common ground. So I put together Book of the Fallen, and now I'm just sick and tired of people getting excited about Satanism, going and looking at the mainstream organizations and going, oh, well, that isn't it. where's the real Satanism that I'm excited about after reading these books? And it doesn't exist. It don't. But now it will, because I'm going to build it. And that's just one of those things, again, where it's like, that's a massive undertaking. It's scary as hell, but I'm going to do it. So that's one of the other, that's the main big project I have going. I am about to start a book about the runic Grigori, a whole book about Grigori work as a divination tool, similar to tarot, where there are multiple different ways of reading with cards. Yeah, it's a system that I've been working with for about, I don't know, over the last year. And it's so incredibly, profoundly impactful in crazy, unexpected ways whenever I do it. Every single time I do it, it has surprised me, and with just how powerful it is. So I'm absolutely going to write a book on that. And then this is the first time I'm saying this publicly, and ooh, I might be cursing myself here, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm actually going to I'm going to do a remake of Paradise Lost. So I'm actually going to go back through and literally rewrite that from a satanic perspective.
Wow. I'm going to be definitely picking up every single one of those things, brother. That sounds so cool. And taking and actually making a change, that's the thing that like always gets me. If I see something that needs to be fixed, am I going to expect the government to fucking do it? Are you kidding me? They're gonna make some BS law to go along with it. It's cheesy as it sounds. Be the change you want to see in the world. And guess what? You're doing it.
I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, that's exactly the mindset that I had to have. I was like, I'm sick of hearing and saying this, and I don't see anybody else making the change. So if I don't want to just shut up about it, then I actually have to do it. And I had that same recognition that you did, that people have to be the ones just to do it. Like, we are in a generation and I don't mean that as an age specific thing, as in the age that we live in, the generation that we live in is a watcher generation, is a generation of watching it go down and saying, well, somebody should probably change that. But see, that's a disconnect. It's a disconnect from the age we're in and ages before us, where people understood that not everybody has that inclination. Not everybody has that thought of, well, somebody should be fixing this. So if you have it, then you kind of are obligated to go and do it, because other people aren't thinking that. And you might be the one that has to be the one to do it. So that was the thing I internalized, and that's the thing. There are many groundwork little principles that are a part of real Satanism, but that's also going to be one of them, which is, if you identify a problem and you think it needs to be fixed, then there you go. And of course, there's reasonableness to that. If it's something that is absolutely out of your wheelhouse and you have, like I said, there's reasonableness to it. But that's something that I very much internalized here recently, and that was a big part of that project. Just to say, you know what? Who knows? We're gonna find out if I'm capable.
Hey, there's a lot of things that I didn't know I was gonna be able to accomplish or go after. And just by starting the journey, it unlocks those next doors, man. And I have no doubt that you're going to open up every door of success and make all that go forth, man. And I'll be fucking rooting for you, man. So hell yeah.
Well,
everyone.
More than that, screw your support. I need some work. Put some work in, son. Come on in. Come help out.
All right. Hey, man, you just told me what you need me to do. I'm really good at getting things hyped. So you need me to get the audience going, dude? I'm serious.
I'm saying, all right, man. That's what I'm saying. We're gonna do the work. We're gonna do it. So again, man, thanks so much for having me on. And anytime, brother, anytime, you let me know and I'm here.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate your time. And everyone, check out the link down below. I'm gonna stop this recording right here and ask you one more question off air. But everyone, have a great night and thank you so much.